Welcome to The Explainer. Let's just jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating piece of legal strategy from the civil rights case of Hirschfeld v. Johnston. We're going to break down exactly how the plaintiff attempted to overcome a massive roadblock from a federal judge. And spoiler alert, they didn't do it by arguing legal theory. Instead, they used a meticulously detailed forensic audit of the court's own digital docket. It's like a giant puzzle, and we're putting the pieces together.
So, think about building frameworks that literally reassemble order from total chaos. That's our core theme here. In this explainer, we're looking at this civil rights litigation not as your typical stuffy courtroom debate, but as a structural reassembly of systemic digital truth. We're getting into the code.
We've got a clear roadmap for today. First, the judicial roadblock. Second, the strategic docket pivot. Third, the June 2015 machine rejection. Then the human override, followed by the 2022 administrative admission, and finally, the locked forensic architecture.
Section 1. The judicial roadblock, a federal judge's objection. Here's where the roadblock hits. In Judge Wang's May 8, 2026 order, a huge hurdle was dropped right in the plaintiff's path. Originally, the plaintiff relied on Colorado Statute 26-13-106, basically arguing that the law mandated the collection of Social Security numbers to make a child support order valid. Well, the federal judge completely rejected that statutory interpretation.
And honestly, the defense was absolutely prepared to win a debate on the statute. The judge pointed out that the statute actually doesn't explicitly mention Social Security numbers anywhere for a valid order. Plus, the court questioned whether a June 10th minute order somehow nullified a June 9th agreement. And since the plaintiff was pro se, meaning he was representing himself without a lawyer, the court made it clear they weren't going to construct arguments for him. To survive, the plaintiff needed a precise structural roadmap to answer the court's directives, and to secure the forensic architecture, he had to cross two very specific bridges.
Section 2. The strategic docket pivot, reframing the battleground.
Okay, so crossing that first bridge meant totally abandoning the statutory debate. The strategy here hinges on a brilliant realization. You can debate statutory text all day long, but you absolutely cannot debate the official, cold, hard digital docket. By pivoting away from the statutory debate and anchoring exclusively to the factual record of the court's ICOM computer system, the plaintiff completely reframed the battleground.
Section 3. June 2015. Machine rejection.
Now we have to cross that second bridge, resolving the judge's question about nullification. This timeline maps out a critical cluster of events across 2 consecutive days in June 2015, followed by a massive 7-year leap to 2022. Let's zoom in on that very first day.
On June 9, 2015, the court adopted a separation agreement, but here is the kicker. The plaintiff argues this was strictly a procedure record. In fact, the minute order from that day explicitly notes that the parties still needed to provide Social Security numbers for all family members. The data was missing. Then, the very next day, June 10th, court staff attempted to input this into the state's ICON computer system, and the system hit a hard stop. It output exactly this: unable to enter support orders as we are missing SSN for children. According to the complaint, the distinction is crucial. The June 10th entry isn't nullifying anything. It's simply the computer system confirming its absolute incapacity to generate an executable enforcement instrument. Why? Because it didn't have that required data.
Section 4. The human override, code versus conduct.
This brings us to a stark, almost unbelievable contrast between software code and human conduct. The ICON system functioned exactly as designed. The safeguard activated correctly. But the complaint alleges that human actors consciously chose to bypass that machine's safeguard. And because the machine never generated a valid order, the plaintiff argues that what followed was a decade of aggressive executive enforcement completely lacking a valid judicial predicate. We're talking wage garnishments, a driver's license suspension, and leaving the plaintiff unhoused for 527 days, all running off a non-existent instrument.
Section 5. The 2022 administrative admission. Fast forward 7 years to June 2, 2022. Suddenly, an entry labeled Event ID 00031 appears on the docket, manually styled as Child Support Order-First. The plaintiff points out that by the docket's own strict classification rules, using the word first operates as a devastating administrative admission. It's the government database quietly admitting that no executable support order actually existed for the preceding 7 years.
When you look at the forensic metadata for this 2022 entry, it practically screams administrative fabrication.
The e-file status is literally N for no. The authorizer field says N/A, meaning zero judicial sign-off, and it completely lacks a valid filing ID. The argument here is incredibly straightforward. This was just a data patch by human operators, absolutely not a true judicial act.
Section 6. The Locked Forensic Architecture.
Now, what if the defense tries to say, well, this 2022 entry was just an order modifying child support? The plaintiff's trap is already set using the void modification doctrine from a case called People v. District Court. Under Colorado law, modifying a void or non-existent order is by definition void itself. It's the ultimate fallback. You simply cannot legally modify an order that your own computer system proves never existed in the first place.
So let's bring it all together. The second amended complaint is structured perfectly to answer the federal court's exact directives. By completely abandoning the statutory debate, it frames the 2015 to 2022 collections strictly as unauthorized executive enforcement. It is anchored exclusively to the factual, irrefutable digital docket. The core takeaway? The system worked perfectly, the human actors failed. And it leaves us with such a profound question about the very systems that govern our lives. When a machine explicitly says unable to enter based on the objective rules it was programmed with, who holds the human operators accountable for overriding it? That is the systemic issue right at the heart of this explainer. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the systems around you.